You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, guess what? We're live. Welcome to the program this evening. This is Scotty Roberts, and I want to welcome you to the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over and see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. And tonight, of course, as with many other nights in the past couple of months, that we are not live over on Odyssey, but we are playing archives over there of the 500 some shows that we have archived over at Odyssey Radio. So come on over, listen. You can listen throughout the day. Check the schedule, and you can see all the stuff that's going on over there. At the same time, you can come on over here to the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. And those of you who are here, of course, already know that. So I want to put my hand up in front of the camera because we are broadcasting, as you know, live here from the Makeshift Studio in Louisiana, where we don't have any of our equipment or our studio stuff going on, and we're broadcasting by phone because of our lack of good internet here. And so the only way I can broadcast is by phone, so you have to put up with that. And we got the shakies tonight. You see that? See that camera moving? That's our repaired camper. It came back with more shaky problems at the table, which is a minor thing. It's just getting it done and getting that fixed. So we've got to do that as well. So welcome to the show tonight, folks. I hope you all had a good weekend. I've got my chat room is down here, so I can watch that going on as we are talking, and so I can stay in touch with everybody over here. I've got a lot I want to talk about tonight, and some things that some of you might look at this as political. I don't see it as political. This is stuff, it's not politics, although there's politics wrapped around it. And it might be a topic that you're tired of hearing about over the last several years. But this has been a topic I know since I was a kid in school. In high school, I heard these topics being talked about. And we're going to get into that pretty quickly here, so we have some time to discuss it. Let's see. I just want to make sure everything's set over there with the camera. And so greetings to everyone. Master Finn, how you doing, sir? It's good to see you here tonight, taking her out in ship-shape order. And Steve Clark, good to see you, brother. Robert V, good to see you, brother. See you every now and then. Steph Cuervo Queen, she says, okay, I'm here. Yay. Yay, you're here. Roger Rabbit, good to see you. Greetings to the lovely Carly and Kinsey. I hope your life is going well. I know that we all complain about things that go on in our life, but you've got a row to hoe there, and I'm sure it's tiring sometimes. And I appreciate the fact that you'd even find time to come over here and talk with us. So everybody think of Roger and Carly and Kinsey. There's just always something going on that is, I'm sure by now, straining the edges of everybody's patience over there. And so, Roger, know that we're with you. And if there's anything any of us can do, let us know. And I didn't want to make such a big thing about that, but I did want to mention that. And let me make another adjustment here to the camera. There we go. All right. And Beth Kirkham, good to see you. Glad you're here tonight. And who else we got? We got Leslie Holker. And I saw a couple of it. Was Field Guy in here earlier, and I missed him. So anyway, everybody who's here. Joyce, are you serious? Is here. Good to see you, Joyce. Nice to see you every now and then. Ryan Gale Dog, he says. Scotty Dog. And so good to see you here. I'm glad you're here, Ryan. Corey Blake was here earlier. Shalom. Corey Blake. Shalom. And I can't do it with my right hand. It's funny. I can only do it with my left. I don't know why that is. That is a Jewish thing. It wasn't just Leonard Nimoy came up with that for Star Trek. And Alan Stiles, good to see you tonight. And how do you take a topic I'm going to talk a little bit about guns, Second Amendment rights, things like that. Those of you who are tired of hearing about that stuff, don't roll your eyes and go, oh boy, here we go. I got better things to do. There are some important things to discuss. I think there are some good psychological factors behind what we believe. There is somebody who's a dear friend who I saw saying things and misspeaking about the United States from another country, who has a misunderstanding of why we have our gun laws and why we hold firmly to those. Hey, Delaney, good to see you. And so the big question is there a good spirituality behind the way we take a stance on guns? I need some more guns too. As a matter of fact, Joyce, I'm right there with you. And I don't know, I've got 2 chat rooms going here. It looks like one is, oh, there you are. It's caught up now on my computer. I can do a lot of things with my hands, says Field Guy. Can you kill with your hands, Field Guy? Judo, chop, chop. Yeah, I'm not going to name names on anybody, but there are things that come out that sound like they come from an emotive standpoint. And the gun issue, believe it or not, if all of us haven't recognized this already, is a very emotive issue for people. Some would rather degrade our country for even allowing guns, coming from a country that is controlled by a parliament and a monarchy. And so there are reasons we have the constitutional right that we have. And I don't think any of us needs another lesson on, hey, Steph, Cuervo Queen, I see you out there. Elderberry, I see you as well. And guys, I'm going to put I want to put the way that you can call the chat room, or for those of you in the chat room, the way you can call into this show. Let's see, it's going to wiggle the camera a lot. I want you guys to have this available. So if you want to call in, you can do this. Let's see, and I got to do it over here on this phone. I want to post a comment. It makes me go through quite the rigmarole here. Let's see, because I want to put this in and post a comment. I want to paste the link, boom, and send it. There it goes. Now it's in the chat room. Okay, you guys see that link? Copy that link, and you'll be able to see. I think it posted up there. It's not showing up in the. There it is. All right, you see that link right there? I'm going to copy that so I've actually got it here on the computer as well, and I can repaste that time to time throughout the show. All right. So if you want to talk about this issue, if you've got some things that you want to add to this issue, I would love to hear from you. And you can certainly come in and we'll chat about it. And Morgan Snow says, I'm glad they have them. Okay, I missed something there. Leslie, good to see you. Morgan reminds me of G. Gordon Liddy. After Watergate, he couldn't own his guns, but his wife could. Yeah, that's very true. Let's see. Steph Tubb live stream tonight. There's a Steph Tubb live stream tonight, Field Guy. Steph, well, what do you have to say about that? Let's see. Joyce says Bauer. What is Professor Bauer in the room? I don't see him. If he's there, raise your hand, Professor Bauer. And let's see. So let's talk about this a little. I've got some things I want to mention about some of the psychology, I think, that's behind the whole gun control thing, the whole gun issue thing. Something I find, I go a lot to Psychology Today to see what's going on in psychological circles. And I looked up there and some other places, some things about guns. And of course, the psychological approach all seems to be everybody I encounter in the psychological fields, at least as you see them online, the bigger organizations like Psychology Today, all seem to have a certain, what you might call in politics, a leftist bent, as opposed to a rightist bent. But they do look at these things from a psychological standpoint, and I do want to talk about them. Morgan Snow says, I can't own one, but I sure can use them. And, you know, you hit on something there. You know how to use them. I think one of the biggest factors in having guns, gun ownership in this country, is that you should know how to use them. You should take a course, you should be licensed, and education disintegrates a lot of the negative arguments about them. People were has anyone seen or heard from Professor Bauer? I haven't, Joyce. I haven't talked to him a lot lately. I see him posting things online every now and then. That's about it. That's all I know about him these days. The beings that inspired the invention of the, is that a gun, Delaney, that you showed there? A laser gun is a vampire. Oh, the invention of guns was a vampire? I did not know that. So Ryan Gale says, I took a firearms safety class when I was like 10. Me too. I was pretty much a sharpshooter when I was a kid as well, because I practiced and I knew how to use them. Now, we didn't have a family with guns. We weren't hunters. There's a lot of families of people that own guns that are hunters. We didn't do any of that. I just wanted to know how to do it. And he was watching a video on YouTube about the CEO of Remington, says Leslie, and he said they sold more ammo in 2020 than they did the 99 years prior, and they can't keep up with the demand. Yeah, there were more. I had heard that after COVID started and all the sequestering at home, that there were larger numbers of firearms sold a year ago, March and April, than any other time in American history. And there were a lot of people who were not of the conservative bent that made those purchases. Crossbows fun to shoot. Yeah, it is. But crossbows kill, not people. So, Steve, want to be my bodyguard, says Joyce. So there are good questions out there. And there are emotively driven or psychological, pardon for the wobbling of the camera, folks. That's, the stand is good. It's the table that's unstable. Yeah, we used to shoot 22s at summer camp. My boy in Scouts, they shoot BB guns, but they have BB gun ranges and contests and things like that. But that's really that's the wicked precursor to a kid owning a gun. Now, I think this is my opinion, and I think it's very sound. Owning a gun does not mean that you will become a murderer. Having the right in this country to own and bear firearms does not mean that you will misuse them. Are there people that misuse them? Yes. Somebody put up a post this morning that showed a diagram. It's on my Facebook if you want to see it. That shows the 22 mass shootings that we have had in 1 month in the United States. And of course, we all thought that would go away under Biden. It has not. But of course, Biden is trying to slap down on all the law-abiding citizens by making the erroneous argument that the lack of guns, or sorry, not the lack of guns, the increase of gun control and gun regulations, which, who follows those regulations? Law-abiding citizens. That slapping more of those kinds of regulations on law-abiding citizens is somehow going to stop people from murdering, stop gangbangers from shooting each other, stop suicide killers from killing their family and then themselves. You know, that was done long before guns, you know. And Beth says, I'm not sure what the point is here. Well, Beth, we haven't made the point yet. We're getting there. The whole show is going to be the point. My family owns guns. I grew up with diehard liberal gun owners. There you go. And so, yeah, it's basically, though, when I break down and I say there's politics involved, there's not many on the right or a conservative mindset that you will find trying to slap down on guns and gun control. They support, for the most part, the Second Amendment. It's usually from the left that you see that coming. And there are probably deeper, darker, more dire reasonings behind that. And people can bring up all the things they want about, you know, history. I said to my foreign friend today, I said, if you are a student of history, just go back and look at weapon ownership, gun ownership in the 20th century, and look at the countries that slapped laws on those and tried to take people's guns away. And that's, I'm just using a blanket argument there to represent a much larger, broader argument. So the heart and mind must be righteous to own a gun. Well, you know, Delaney, I think I understand your point. I don't know if righteous is the word. How many of us here believe we are righteous? You may be in certain religious circles believe you are positionally righteous because of salvation or you're standing with God, but there's not a one of us that doesn't, that I would say, and I know me for certain, I don't qualify as righteous, but I believe I would be a decent gun owner. I don't believe I would turn my guns on anyone without a need to do so. And keep in mind, this person, I don't want to misrepresent this person, but they were saying, well, why do you all think you need guns to protect yourselves? That's all just, you know, you all trying to swing your big collective penises in everybody else's faces. So I got a gun. And no, that is not what it's about. Gun ownership for some people, it's fun shooting a gun. I like my guns. I like even my 1762 Brown Bess Longland 72 caliber musket is something that's fun to shoot. I could kill somebody with it, but I could kill somebody with this knife. This is a knife I wear in my pocket. Not because I think it's cool to wear a knife in my pocket, but because I'm always looking for one. And so I've got something like this, you know, in my pocket, and I carry that around. And it's to cut open boxes and things like that. I've never once thought I needed it to defend myself. That's not why I have it. But it's pretty, and I like it. But I could kill somebody with that if I wanted to. The point is that I am moral enough, you can call it morals, there's nothing wrong with that, that I'm not going to go out and kill somebody with my pocket knife. And single action shot competitor. There you go, Beth. Fantastic. I used to shoot skeet a long time ago. And don't get all excited, field guy. Different kind of skeet. So, oh wait, that's scat. That's what would get field guy all up in arms. So let's talk about this. I wanted to look at, there's some arguments for gun control that I think it can be very easily debunked. And there was an attorney and a former sniper team leader for the U.S. Army explains why 10 of the most common gun control arguments don't make any sense at all. And I want to go through some of those. And I'm going to go through some of the psychology of all of this. School shootings, what they're calling in the last month, all these mass shootings. Now a mass shooting has become two people and somebody committing suicide in a parking lot. That is now a mass shooting because it fits the argument that the current administration is trying to make. And when you have a media that's complicit or compliant with any seated political point of view in the office, you're going to see the media supporting that point of view. So what's the media doing right now? They're making sure that we know all the bad, evil things about guns. And they're classifying everything to do with the shootings of just the last month alone. It's all mass shootings because it involved more than one person. Because that fits an agenda, it fits an argument. Steve Clark says, you know the right spots, a person and can kill them with an ink pen. Yeah, you can. It's easy. I could kill somebody with an ink pen. But I don't. For the same reasons I don't kill anybody with a gun. So, well, let's see. The 13-year-old that was the gangbanger had no guns in his home, but he and a 21-year-old had guns. There you go. Thank you, Steph. Hey, Doug Stack, good to see you. Leslie's correct, says Doug Stack. What is the one thing all mass shootings have in common? They're all in gun-free zones. You're not going to see, and this came out a few years ago. Remember the nightclub shootings a few years ago? There was something about that being a gun-free zone. And that's when that started getting talked about, is most of the places you find shooters, they're not going to go into places where everybody's wearing a piece or somebody can wear a piece. They go to gun-free zones. When shooters shoot up a school, that's a gun-free zone. They're not going to walk into, I bet you what, they're not going to walk into a gun show and start trying to shoot up a gun show. That may be an extreme example, but there you go. Poisonings are quite common, harder to detect also, says Corey Blake. Yeah, that's very true. So, so what we're being led to believe, first of all, is that guns are the cause of so much death. They're not saying, I will give the other side the point for this. They're not saying all murders are a result of guns or people misusing guns. They're zeroing in on guns. Why are guns being zeroed in on? Because people have killed with them? And it's like I started to make the point. Somebody put up that diagram, and I repeated the diagram. CNN showed the 22 mass killings over the last month in the United States. And I would ask this. Now, this isn't to sound cold or callous, but I would ask you, if you know that there are approximately 22 gunmen, 22 to 25 gunmen that were out there and they committed these murders, mass murders, be it 20 people, be it 2 people, that they killed with these guns, and they make the news and they're being used as political fodder. Out of those 22, how many citizens are there in the United States? We have something like 360 million. I don't know the exact number. Maybe it's 328 million. I may have typed it not knowing the exact number, pulling it off the top of my head. But out of 300 million plus citizens who have the constitutional guarantee to bear arms, 22 of them committed murders last week. 22 individuals last month, not 360 million of them. So do we make the laws for the lowest common denominator? Do we chisel away at constitutional rights for those who abuse it? Joyce says the Second Amendment is to protect the first and the unalienable rights. It's not inalienable, it's unalienable. Guns don't kill. Guns, oops, the chat room moved on me. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Joyce? You were making a great point. Oh, you retracted the message. Okay, I lost it. I was repeating Joyce's point. It was a good point. In China, one dude killed like 17 and injured 58 people, all in about 10 minutes with a knife a few years ago. I remember that. If you know how to wield a knife, do you think you could walk through a crowd and do a lot of damage? Yeah, you can. Well, let's get to this point. School shootings dominated the news cycle. The common theme anti-gunners express is how gun control can somehow solve the problem of mass shootings and school shootings. Oh, if only we could save one life, we hear. And so the most common gun control arguments of today go something like this. These shootings would stop if we had only banned AR-15s. Or other semi-automatic rifles, raised the minimum age for firearm ownership, and or created tougher gun laws. I'm going to tell you something, folks. These are emotion-based arguments. They're not going to do anything to solve the problem. In fact, they can even make the problem worse while infringing on the liberties of Americans. So I want to explore and debunk the 10 of the most common gun control arguments. So I'm going to do that right now, and we're going to follow through. And I got a bunch of other stuff to talk about too. So we'll see how our time holds out for us. And I can tell you something. I'm not a right-wing wacko walking around with my gun who thinks I need to wear my AR-15 to the Capitol steps. I just don't do that. It's not my thing. But somebody said, is it like the Old West? And I said, well, the Old West was lawless. We have laws here. Corey Blake said, isn't that how most women vote, with their emotions? Careful there, Corey. You're going to step in it. I'm not going to step in that one. You ask the women in our chat room if they vote emotively or intellectually, and you'll get an idea. Not to degrade your point, you may have just been making fun there too. I understand that. Gun control will never touch illegal guns, says Leslie, and you're right about that. Those are the ones you have to worry about the most, the illegal guns. Now, of course, whenever you find that there's been a shooter and he's an NRA advocate and he's bought all his guns legally, you will always get the argument, well, this guy bought his guns legally. Well, you know what? That's not the overwhelming majority of the cases. I love the term assault weapon, says Morgan Snow. So what does that mean? Everything can be an assault. You know what? This is an assault pen if I use it to assault somebody. And like I say, I could gouge your eyes out with this and shove this up your nose and into your brain, and you'd be dead. It'd be an assault pen. So, I probably shouldn't say most, said Corey. I felt you were probably being a little facetious there. So, okay, here's the first argument that I want to debunk. The Second Amendment only gives the right to own guns for use in a militia. Now, you've heard this because of the way the Constitution is stated. It talks about that we'll have a well-regulated initia, and the government shall not infringe upon the right to own a weapon. I'm paraphrasing. So our Second Amendment reads, here, let's stop paraphrasing, I'll just read it for you. A well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. So our Constitution, this is maybe a minor point that some people don't understand. Our Constitution doesn't give us any rights. Doesn't at all. The Constitution doesn't give us anything. The Constitution affirms rights that we already have and safeguards them. And you have to note that the right of the people to keep and bear arms isn't given by the language above. Instead, our right to keep and bear arms, which exists outside of the Constitution, is protected from infringement. So the right to keep and bear arms is what the Constitution says, shall not be infringed. So it's not saying, oh, we with this piece of paper grant everybody who's a citizen the right. It's saying it shall not be infringed by the government. The militia is mentioned as a goal for the protection of our right to keep and bear arms. It's not a requirement. A helpful analog from an unknown author goes like this. A well-educated electorate being necessary to the preservation of a free society, the right of the people to read and compose books shall not be infringed. So, in that example, it should be easy to see that the right to read and compose books isn't reserved only to those who are registered voters or well-educated. Instead, the goal is a well-educated electorate for which the tools of education are needed. So likewise, our right to keep and bear our arms is protected in the event a well-regulated militia is needed to defend our country. Catch that? And these are things we all know, and maybe it's a bit of semantics because we've all heard these things before, maybe in different ways being stated. But the right to keep and bear arms is protected in the event a well-regulated militia is needed to defend our country. And as many of the founders have said, and I've said this before, the right to own and bear arms was considered to be the right that already existed. Our Constitution says our government cannot infringe upon that, and that the purpose of it is to keep a citizenry safe, that a citizenry always has the ability to retaliate or rebel against a tyrannical government. So the people setting up this current government that we still have by the Constitution were already recognizing that it can be abused. And they said, so the right to own and bear your arms and defend yourselves and defend your country will never be infringed, should never be infringed. And that came only as a Second Amendment to the First, which is the right to free speech. which is also under attack these days. So number two of these reasons that you will see anti-gun people giving you. The Second Amendment only applied to muskets. Now we know that that's kind of stupid. So if the Second Amendment only applied to muskets because it was during the day, then the First Amendment only applies to standing on the cobblestone street corner and proclaiming something, or the written word with ink and quill, and maybe a printing press. It did not apply to social media, did not apply to electronics. It did not apply to broadcasts, if that same argument is to be used. So anti-gunners often claim that modern rapid-fire arms are not protected by the Second Amendment. And this argument assumes that muskets were the only type of arms in existence when the Second Amendment was written, and therefore our founding fathers never intended our protections to extend to modern and more advanced and evolved firearms. So first, repeating rifles were in existence for more than 100 years before our Bill of Rights were included in the Constitution. Second, muskets were military-grade firearms. Our founding fathers wanted to protect our ability as citizens to overthrow a tyrannical government, which would include the capability to match whatever arms an opposing army possessed. The intent, and you can find the intent, while it's not all spelled out in all its detail in the Constitution. You can look at things like the Federalist Papers and the writings of all the founding fathers that will talk about these things. Does the Second Amendment say anything about serial numbers? Nope, not a thing. And I would bet $1 million, says Corey, guns didn't have numbers back then either. Well, some of them did. There were stock numbers. You can find stock. I have swords hanging on my wall from the mid-1700s that have military stock numbers on them. So there were some numbering because the government owned them. I know the one sword, my Scottish basket hilt, which hangs on the studio wall behind me back home. That basket hilt has a couple of different insignias on it, stamped into the basket portion, underneath the basket, underneath. And it shows a crown with a GR underneath it. That meant Georgius Rex. That meant that this is the king's weapon, meaning it belonged to the king. It belonged to the military. And then there was a couple of other numbers stamped on there as well. Leslie says, Steve, my husband can't do. His dad did that all his life. I miss what that conversation was, that mini conversation. Morgan says the propaganda machine is in overdrive. That's very true. Why do you think the news media, who we found out the news media just in the last couple of weeks, things that the news media was doing to support the Biden election? Wasn't so much Biden as they wanted Trump out of office. And so they supported the candidate that was against it. And that all came out in some very revealing stuff from the media last week. And that aside, that's a totally different topic. We'll maybe talk about that another time. But you've got right now a press that is compliant with the current administration. Compliant, maybe that's not the word. Complicit, maybe a better word. In cahoots with might be working better. I don't think there's a big meeting where they all sit together and discuss these things. I just think that they support that agenda. And we all know the press overall, the mainstream media in this country, is predominantly in numbers held by those who are more left-leaning, and many of them anti-gun leaning. And so Project Veritas, that was it, Delaney, yes. Project Veritas, look that up on looking up the stuff about the election and the press and the media. Elderberry says, yes, and it's illegal for the news to lie. Yeah, it is, but they do. So let's move on with this. If the argument were valid that the Second Amendment only applied to muskets of the day, the firearms of the day, mid-18th century firearms, if that were valid, then smartphones and social media would not be protected as forms of speech under the First Amendment, because these modern rapid-fire forms of communication were not around 250 years ago. So that's a point I made already. Maybe a small point to make, but when you start comparing it and trying to common sense it out, that's an argument that falls by. Another argument, a third argument of those who are against guns or for banning guns or more gun control. Number 3, criminals won't have guns if we ban them. Now, we've already kind of bantered about that bit over there in the chat room. But let's look at this. Simply, law-abiding citizens will obey the law and criminals won't. That's how life works. Why are there good guys and bad guys? We talked about the moral issue, the moral factor or the righteous factor, as Delaney put. That's how life works. You're going to have good people, you're going to have bad people. The diagram that CNN put up with the 22 mass killings in the last month, that's very sensationalist. Since when is somebody committing suicide and killing another person or 2 people with him considered a mass killing in the way that you see it broadcast? So the definition of a criminal is someone who doesn't obey the law. Keeping guns out of criminals' hands because they've been banned will be just as successful as our ban on, did you know there's a ban on crystal meth? How many crystal meth addicts are there out there? Where are they getting their crystal meth? It's been banned. It's been banned. They can't get that anywhere, right? So if the crime of and the penalty for murder doesn't stop criminals from conducting mass shootings, neither will another law added on top of it. That's why the only conclusion for some of these people is to ban guns altogether. But to do so, they would have to tear out the Second Amendment. So they keep trying to find end runs around the Second Amendment because they cannot outright ban it. So, as an example, bombs are already illegal. Did you know it's illegal to have a bomb? But the penalty for murder, nor the penalty against making bombs, has stopped the Oklahoma City bombing and other things like that we've seen. The Boston Marathon bombing, or the serial bomber in Austin. We didn't see those things stop because bombs were illegalized. So not only will a gun ban not work, it's going to ensure that only the people with guns become criminals. Joy says, no, a crime. The definition is inflicting injury on another. Yes, that's what that is. Inflicting injury on another. Now, infliction of injury, that's interpretable too. I could injure my son accidentally by, I don't know, whatever means. I lower the awning on the camper and he doesn't know it's there and he walks into it and injures his head. I just injured him by my actions, but that's not a criminal injury. So Joyce says, well, we have our codes of black laws, which is contract law, but real law is not commercial law codes and code enforcers. Right. I agree. Leslie says, I kind of think that should be because bombs have proven to be created to kill. Yeah, why do you create a bomb? What's the purpose of a bomb? Now, you could use dynamite to blast out or different means to blast out while you're mining or drilling or things like that. But what's really the purpose of a bomb, the way we understand it? Kill people. So, number 4, AR-15s. Certain semi-automatic rifles should be banned, is one of the gun controllers' arguments. Again, criminals will not obey the bans. They will not obey the laws. If there were 22 mass shootings, mass, and I keep putting quotes up because it wasn't mass at all, if there were 22 killings, mass killings last month, would those have been prevented because there were more laws? Or would those people have still found ways to kill the people that they're killing and have access to the guns that were illegalized? Again, criminals are not going to obey the laws. The France mass shooting was carried out where those types of rifles were already banned in France. So also rifles, although popularized by the media, are not regularly used in violent crimes. In fact, according to the FBI, hammers and blunt instruments are used in more murders than rifles are. Hammers and blunt instruments. Just guns make the news. Why? Because there is a political agenda behind banning them. So hammers and blunt instruments are used in more murders than rifles. Ryan says, politicians you don't agree with should be banned. Yeah, there you go. That's what our current government is trying to do. The current administration, I should say. So, and those who support the current administration. So rifles have been used in some recent mass shootings. However, the shooters at like Maryland at Fort Hood, the Virginia Tech, they didn't use rifles. Even if they did, rifles are merely a tool used by a murderer. Much like the box cutters by the terrorists in 9/11. Did the 9/11 terrorists who flew 2 planes into the Twin Towers, did they have guns on them? No. These box cutters. So likewise, vehicles are most commonly used by drunk drivers. And those texting while driving kill people. No, these people don't have a murderous intent. However, many more deaths are caused in this manner, and it's still the fault of the person and not the tool that's being used. That's a very, it seems like a very old, common sense, maybe cliche argument. But it's not the tool, it's the person and what they're using it for. So number 5, we have to raise the rifle purchase age to 21 years old. Now, so raising the age of buying a rifle, we gotta make it all 21 years old or older. So currently under federal law, an 18-year-old can legally purchase a rifle or a shotgun, but a purchaser must be 21 years old for a handgun. So either 18 years old are adults or they aren't. So if an 18-year-old is not responsible enough to purchase a rifle or a shotgun, then he or she isn't responsible enough to vote or join the military or drive a car or be treated as an adult in crimes. Ever think of that? To be an adult to own a handgun, but at 18, when you're a legal adult, you still can't own a handgun. Still can't smoke or buy cigarettes. You can't buy alcohol. But you can do other things that responsible adults are allowed to do. So it's a false argument. Raising the minimum age to purchase firearms wouldn't have changed 29 of the 30 worst mass shootings in U.S. history. 26 of the 30 were committed by someone 21 years of age or older. That's 26 of 30. One was committed by a 20-year-old who stole his mother's firearms. Another was committed by students who used a pistol they couldn't legally purchase. And a third was committed by a 16-year-old who couldn't purchase any firearms legally at all. That's 3 of them. Now keep in mind, we're looking at these numbers and we think, wow, 22 mass shootings is a lot of mass shooting. 22 shootings that make the news is a lot of shootings. What was it? Chicago in the last 6 months had 1,550 shootings. Chicago is supposed to be, there's supposed to be a gun ban in Chicago. Yet there were 1,550 murders by guns in Chicago. The most recent shooting in Maryland was committed by a student with a handgun. Now this is before last month, but who was 18 years old. That's yet another example of a minimum age law doesn't work. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Unalienable. Yes, exactly. Unalienable, Joyce. Doug Stack says Chauvin isn't even being charged with murder one. I haven't followed that. That's my hometown. But I'm not following that. I haven't watched much news. When I'm down here, I'm kind of sequestered from news. I see bits and pieces. Leslie says, I'd love to see them raise the voting age to 25. By that age, most young people know what it means to have responsibilities. I agree. I think the voting age should be raised. Irresponsible voting takes place from 15. And now the left wants to raise the voting age or lower the voting age to 16. How many of you know, I know there are some out there, but how many of you believe 16-year-olds should be able to vote for the president of the United States? They can't even pay for their own apartments yet. So Roger Rabbit, we get Chicago as our local news. It's always shootings all day. News at noon or night, always multiple shootings. And Chicago has a ban on firearms. How about that? Doug Stack says, Scotty, you would need to scroll back to catch the whole comment, I'm sure. Sorry. You can fill me in, or is anybody called in? If anybody wants to call in, they can. Let's see. I'm going to move on. Number 6, gun-free zones are safe spaces. That is an argument of those who are anti-gun. No, in fact, the opposite is true. Gun-free zones are a magnet for shooters and mass shooters. Almost every mass shooting we have experienced has occurred in a gun-free zone. So it's logical that these monsters prefer unarmed victims. You think that that might be something? Why would somebody who wants to go out, some psychotic person who wants to go out and kill a bunch of people with his gun, why would he want to do that in a zone where people can freely carry their guns? They want unarmed victims. That's not a responsible gun owner. That's a criminal. That's a sick person. In fact, most of the shooters are stopped once they're confronted with armed resistance. How do you think most of these shooters get stopped? Armed resistance. People say, well, that's trained law enforcement. You know what? There are other people other than trained law enforcement that have taken down and stopped people committing mass murder. If politicians believe that gun-free zones work, why do they hide behind armed security themselves? They have armed security in gun-free zones. Why is that? Something to think about. 7, places with strict gun laws don't have shooting problems. That's an argument that's put forward. This is not true at all. Take a look at Chicago, which we've mentioned a couple of times. A city with some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation. In the year 2016 alone, Chicago saw 762 gun deaths and experienced 4,331 shootings. Chicago, gun-free city. Where do all the shootings come from? They're gun-free, right? That stuff works, right? France, where there were 532 casualties from mass shootings in 2015. As a comparison, America experienced 527 casualties from mass shootings over an 8-year period from 2009 to 2016. France is gun-free. So those numbers mean that France, which has incredibly strict gun laws, and it's 1/5 of our population, experienced 8 times the amount of casualties from a mass shooting in 1 year. Clearly, 2015 was an anomaly for France. However, the comparison is used to show that gun control doesn't prevent gun violence. Also note the rampant violent crime in much of Europe, which generally maintains very restrictive gun laws. the facts just blow up in the face of people that push this forward. Leslie says, I was 18 when I could vote, but I had a papa who used our mealtime to teach us. And he got us involved in the government process and elections before our teen years. Elderberry says, I still can't identify with the mindset of these people who need to hurt other people. I watched this and wonder my whole life. Never got answers why people think this way. You and me both, Elderberry. Why would I, because I'm disgruntled, why would I go out and kill innocent people with a gun? That makes no sense to me. You know why? Because we are decent people and we are people who are not, who, I don't care what they say, it takes a certain psychosis, a certain, you could say evil, if you want to talk spirituality. It takes a certain kind of person to go out and kill a bunch of innocent kids to make a political point. Or because they're disgruntled or pissed off. Oh, Joyce says, I want to call. What's the number? Joyce, it's not a number. You can go right here. It's going to put you on camera too. So boom, hit that link. You'll show up here. I got somebody waiting right now. Let's see who's in the wings. We got Doug Stack. Let's bring Doug Stack in. All right, add to the stream. Boom, Doug Stack. I think you're in the stream.
Yeah,
let's see. I got to hit a couple of buttons here. Sorry about that. Boom, boom. And it's really hard to do on this phone the way it is. Boom, done. All right, Doug. I need to. I've got the sound is down on my phone. Hang on. Sorry about my hand, folks. So I've got to raise the sound up. There we go. Okay, Doug.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. What do you got to say, Doug? What's going on, man?
Oh, there's a lot going on, but we won't get into all of that. No, what I was talking about earlier is I think it was Ryan had said something about the politicians. Should we? I forget what the comment was, but I was coming back to him is how can we not charge Maxine Waters for what she said and charge Trump for what he said on incitement? Now, you hadn't heard, but what Maxine Waters said on Sunday was we must find Chauvin guilty of murder one, or we need to get out on the streets and what was it? Confront them or
let's get to the business of going out on the streets and whatever.
Yeah, and then the judge actually said today that what she said pretty much couldn't have the whole Chauvin case, the defense come back and do a process of appeal because she's inciting stuff to happen. But yeah, I mean, you look at it this way. I own guns. I never wanted to kill nobody, and I never will kill anybody unless they're, putting my family.
Right. That's because you are a law-abiding citizen. Somebody on my social media on Facebook, Kendall Blanchard is his name. He mentioned today. He says, I have guns. He says, I have used them. He says, I've stopped 2 robberies and a rapist with his gun. Now, he's not a vigilante. He doesn't walk around looking for trouble. He just happened to be there at the right time and knew how to use his firearm, was able to help people. I said, that makes him a hero in my book.
Now there's people who will use them in bad situations, and there's people that won't. They're gonna use them for criminal acts, but that's what a criminal is, though.
That's right. Hey, was there a verdict yet in the Chauvin case?
Oh, I hadn't paid attention. I
don't know. I didn't follow it today, so Morgan Snow was saying I didn't understand why they didn't even sequester the jury. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything other than you know, what the judge had said, but I hadn't been paying attention to it all day.
Yeah, I haven't either. Well, Doug,
So,
I'm going to let you go. Thank you for calling in with that, brother.
all
And I
right.
look forward to having you back here again anytime.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
brother. We'll see you later. All right, guys. You see how easy? That's how easy that is. Just like Doug does. And Field Guy's been on here. And Audrey, good to see you, Audrey. She has entered the, folks, Audrey has entered the chat room. Good to see you, Audrey. So, yeah, there's not a verdict yet. Okay. Is the trial officially over yet? I should know this stuff, and I don't, because I haven't followed the news since last week. I just kind of blocked a lot of stuff out the last few days. So, is it over and it's with the jury now? I don't know. All right, let's move on with this. Got three more reasons that are given by anti-gun people as to why we shouldn't have guns, or the restrictions that should be put on. Number 8, reducing guns will reduce gun violence. Now, that's probably the biggest fallacy of them all right there. Now, for all the reasons we've already talked about, we know that this is not true. However, if it were true, our goal would be to reduce all violence, not just gun violence. Completely eradicating gun violence wouldn't have stopped the 9/11 terrorist attacks, would it? They didn't use guns. The Boston Marathon bombing, that would still have happened without guns. It did. The serial bombings in Austin, Texas, other violent crimes, they wouldn't have been stopped. According to FBI crime stats in 2004, after the 1994 federal assault weapons ban ended, violent crime actually fell. It's fallen by more than 50% since 1997, when the ban was in effect. Now, since 2004, sales and ownerships of AR-15 style rifles have skyrocketed, thus contradicting the claims made by the gun control components that violent crime fell when the number of guns owned by the population significantly increased. So often, Australia is used as an example for how banning guns works. I was in a conversation with a friend of mine who's an Australian just a short while ago. The conversation was more damning the United States and its citizens than it was really discussing the pros and cons of anything. But if Australia is used as an example of how banning guns works, yes, their firearm-related crime did go down. But their violent crimes, to include sexual assault, kidnapping, manslaughter, robbery, have all stayed the same or have increased. So they still have the amount of violent crime, just not committed by guns. So gun restrictions can lead to an increase in violence when law-abiding citizens are unable to protect themselves. Everywhere would be a gun-free zone. So this whole idea of reducing guns will reduce gun violence, no. It might reduce some gun violence. It doesn't reduce violence at all. Now the number 9, only law enforcement should have guns. Tell that to Great Britain. Law enforcement can't even carry guns over there. Only in special cases. So when seconds count, law enforcement is often minutes away. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the average duration of an active shooter incident at school is 12.5 minutes. That's the average duration of these bad guys who have guns that do this. And by the way, let me reiterate that point. What they're calling 22 mass shootings from last month alone in the United States is a false statement. There were 22 shootings. You know what? There were probably a lot more shootings. But they've got these categorized as mass shootings. And you know what? These are things that would not have been stopped by the current laws on the books and by any further laws that gun controllers want to place. So according to the Department of Homeland Security, the average duration of an active shooter incident at a school is about 12.5 minutes. And in contrast, the average response time for law enforcement is about 18 minutes. So, well, you know what? You take away the ability to use a gun in these incidents, and will that stop it from it? We've already gone through all those in 8 other points. Taking away the gun isn't going to stop the bad guy from either having a gun or a different means of executing people. So a firearm is the best method of self-defense for a single mother defending her children from a home intruder. If police officers need firearms because of the violent people they encounter, then surely average citizens need firearms even more. We're the ones who must face the violent people without backup and while the crime is being committed. So additionally, the argument that only the government should have guns defies the purpose of the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. It's baffling how many people who vilify law enforcement are also the same ones insisting that only law enforcement should have guns. Now remember, let's revisit this right now in case anybody missed this early on. Don't type your arguments in the chat room. Don't be thinking, listen to what I'm saying. The purpose of the Second Amendment was not to grant us the right to use guns. The purpose of the Second Amendment of the Constitution was to recognize the fact that all human beings have the right to own and bear arms, and our Constitution says our government shall not infringe upon that right. And that right was there to enforce the First Amendment. That right, as many of the founders wrote after the Constitution. Look up the Federalist Papers on this. Look up, we could do it. I didn't do it for this show, but we could look up all the different instances where this was written about by the founders. The intent of the Second Amendment was to provide a free citizenry the right to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. So when you have that right to own and bear your arms, this is where it says that the right to own and bear shall not be infringed because the citizenry always needs to have its own last-ditch effort against a tyrannical government. It's the way it's stated. Yeah, the right wasn't written in the 1700s, Amanda. The right existed for a very long time to own and bear weapons. All that happened in the 1700s was that our Constitution guaranteed that the government would not infringe upon that right. There you go. That right existed for a very long time. Every single person is allowed to own and defend his country. It's very true, his or her country, whichever you want to look at it. Yeah, Joyce, if you want to click on that link, here it is again. If you want to come in and talk about this stuff. Oh, I got some people lined up. Let's see who's in here, huh? Let's take a look. Hang on. We got Joyce. All right, Joyce, here we go. I'm adding you to the stream right now. Boom, Joyce, you're on. How you doing?
Hello?
Hi, Joyce.
Can you
Welcome
hear
to the
me?
show. I can hear you. I can see you too.
Oh, great. I have a big echo. I don't know how to get rid of it.
A headset will usually help you with that. And it might even be coming from my end. Let me, when I have somebody on, I always have to plug in my headset. You don't get, sorry about the wiggling
I have the
camera,
plugs
folks.
in.
Let me get my headset on. There we go. Can you hear me all right? I can hear you. I heard you chuckling.
I have the plugs on.
All right. Well,
I'm still
hopefully
hearing an echo. I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't know how to get rid of the echo.
I couldn't tell you why you're getting an echo. That's usually feedback, and there shouldn't be any feedback coming through the line now. But go ahead and make your point if you can. If you can ignore the echo.
Right. Well, this is the first time I've ever gone live, and I'm going to try to do it even though there's a friggin' echo in my ears.
Well, thank you for choosing this show to be the first one to go live on.
I know there's kind of a delay?
Yes. You know what? That could be your computer. If you have your computer and you've got the sound for your computer on, you might want to mute
I shut the sound and everything. I paused everything on the computer. I don't know why there's still an echo.
I'm not sure why you'd be getting an echo. Sorry about that technical glitch. You shouldn't be getting one from this end anyway. So what did you want to say? If you can,
I was
work
trying
yourself through that.
to pronounce the unalienable rights on our gun laws.
Yes. Please do. Are you still there? Or did you freeze up?
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Go right ahead. Talk about that.
I said I wanted to pronounce unalienable.
Yes, unalienable rights. Oh, I thought you were going to explain that one a little. Go ahead and explain that for everybody.
Yeah, a lien is something that they can take, when they put a lien on your property, they can take it away. But we have rights. And according to our rights, they're not allowed to take away that Second Amendment.
That's right.
There's no if, and, or buts about it.
That's right.
And a well-armed militia is the public. It has nothing to do with Army, Navy, servicemen.
That's right.
The public.
Absolutely right. Oh, and by the way, let me respond to Amanda in the chat room. She says, which country, how did she state that? Which nation has held rights for forever? Tell me. Well, I can tell you ones that haven't. You look at all the countries like Russia, Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. You look at Nazi Germany. They didn't stick to the rights of the people. So I'm sorry about that, Joyce. Maybe we can try this again another time. I'll let you go. Thank you for making that point. That's a valid point about the unalienable rights.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that. But thanks for calling in. I appreciate that. That's very cool. And it was nice to see you. Oh, I already got rid of her. I thought she was already gone. So I'm a history man. Yes, Amanda. Tell me, sir, military, no civilians. What's military and no civilians? The Constitution of the United States is applying to the citizens of the United States. It's not speaking to the military. So you can't be the only ones holds their rights. I'm not sure what you mean there, Amanda. Hey, Steph. Okay, here we go again. Have a great night, guys. Steph, don't leave. Could use your input. So let's go on. Let's go to the rest of the points I'm making here against the. In a sense, what I'm doing is debunking the 10 top reasons that anti-gunners will say we shouldn't have guns. The argument that only the government should have guns defies the purpose behind the Second Amendment and its protections. It's baffling how many people who vilify law enforcement are also the same ones that say only law enforcement should have guns. Number 10, high-capacity magazines should be banned. It's one of their arguments. In addition to trying to ban guns, anti-gunners also try to vilify another inanimate object, high-capacity weapons. Typically, the most popular target of their ire are magazines with the capability to hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition, especially AR-15 style magazines. They claim that by stopping to reload, a mass shooter can be stopped. Well, I thought you could stop the mass shooter by banning guns. Well, that's right. Only legal law-abiding citizens wouldn't have them. Criminals will still get them. The facts don't support this, folks. One of the Columbine shooters used 10-round magazines, and the Virginia Tech shooter used mostly 10-round magazines. The shooter from the recent Florida school shooting, although he had an AR-15 style rifle, used 10-round magazines to commit the crime. And Maryland, where the most recent school shooting occurred, already has laws banning the purchase of high-capacity magazines. So how did the bad guy get them? There's already a ban on them in his state. The common theme among most of these arguments is that more laws will make us safer. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Criminals don't obey laws. Instead, maybe it's finally time to realize that gun-free zones don't work, and that we're our own best defense against being a victim. We are our own best defense against victimhood. So let's say we do away with guns. Let's ban them. They're illegal in the United States now. So there will be no more violence now. There'll be no more gun killings. Australia boasts, since Amanda's in the room, you may have heard this, you may have missed this, I don't know. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Australia has very strict gun control laws. And you know what happened? Some of their gun killings dropped. But you know what increased in Australia? Knife killings. Killings with blunt instruments. Other forms of killings. Those increased. And you know what? They've still had shootings in Australia too. You know, we're not going to get into any of the psychological stuff. We're already at 10:15. I just noticed that. We were already 15 minutes over. I was just looking at the clock to see, oh, how much time do I have left? Well, we're already over time. So all I've gone through are these 10 simple things that I went through and tried to debunk a little bit, these 10 common arguments for gun control. And you can debunk them very easily. So that being said, I was going to look at some things on psychology. The whole gun fight, the fear of loss of freedom, trumps the fear of guns. And this is true. Emotions run deep in the battle over guns. You may not like guns. You may never touch a gun in your life. You may never want to pick one up again. And Make America Great Again says if guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. And that while that sounds so cliche, that is the absolute truth of the matter. You outlaw guns, the only people with guns are going to be outlaws. Ryan Gale would help with the veterans out by being there as well. I like the idea of an armed veterans guarding schools. Yeah, it's all right. I don't mind that at all. Population's way too big, and to unite and make a safe nation is impossible, says Amanda B. Well, no, it's not impossible. It might be impossible to have a utopian protection in your society. It's not impossible to have safeguards in your society. If that's impossible, then why does Australia and the United States, why do we even have laws? You can't safeguard anything anyway. So why are the, sorry for the wiggling camera, folks. Why do we have laws at all? If it's impossible to enforce laws and have safety and protection in large populated areas, then why do we have laws at all? Amanda is sweet, yeah. All good, only 24 million, she says. Yeah, we have something like 325 million, 330 million. And there were 22 of those 328 million, whatever it is, our population. I can't remember the exact number. Let's call it, to be fair, let's just say 300 million. Out of our 300 million citizens of the United States, 22 people killed people with guns last month. In the, what they're calling the mass shooting category. It's 22 people. Somebody work up the percentage of that, please. What's 22? What's the what percentage is 22 of 300 million? Somebody work that up. Somebody who knows math, please. Work that up for me. What's the percentage point on that? I'm just curious. Now, that's where the argument would be, well, every life is worth saving. I agree with you. Every life is worth saving. I know somebody today who saved 3 lives because he legally carried his firearm. And he's not law enforcement. Every life is worth saving. How many people are coming over the borders? Well, China and the USA are the biggest pop. You're right. We have a porous border now. And it was getting very strong under the former president. It's not very strong anymore. Just in a couple of months. Boom, done. So, anybody got that percentage point for me? If not, I'll skip it. Somebody, what's 22 is what percentage point of 300 million? Anybody? Anybody? Well, 33 would be what? 0.00001? Something like that. So I don't know what it is. Audrey says, we're landlocked, of course, and we're going to have a huge population. Australia is an island. Yeah. United States is a continent. Well, part of one anyway, coast to coast. Ones who aren't even American in your nation have weapons. Yay, says Amanda. Well, that's right. There are people that come over the border that have weapons. There are people that aren't citizens of this country that violate all kinds of our laws. Why do you think we have a need for a stricter immigration law? Joe Biden just opened up the border. He flew the borders wide open. So why do you think it's the responsibility of the president to regulate immigration? Is the problem the gun, Amanda, in the hand of a non-citizen, or is it the fact that the citizen has one and will misuse it? The non-citizen will have one and misuse it. Yeah, it's something like 1/1000th of a percentage point, says Doug Stack. You're right. Yeah, boy, I'm going to let you guys talk. Audrey and Amanda, you guys can talk that one out. Here, let me look at this. Since we're all still talking, a few of us are talking over there in the chat room. Let me ask you something. Gun violence, is it a people problem? Or is it a gun problem? When it comes to gun violence, is the problem people instead of guns? There's a logic of the argument that I've seen most often in the wake of Stoneman Douglas High shooting, an argument against imposing stricter gun regulations, such as universal background checks, banning assault rifles, all of that. The argument goes like this: we don't have a gun problem, we have a people problem. And I agree with that. It's related to the NRA's argument that guns don't kill people, people kill people. But it actually goes a little deeper, and that's very true. A gun sitting on this, you know what? This pen will not kill you by itself. But if I gouged your eyes out with it and shoved it up your nostril and impaled your brain, that becomes the murderer right there. It's the pen. Keep pens out of the hands of people who can use them to kill people. It's the logic of gun laws. So the suggestion is essentially that the real cause of why we have more gun violence in America compared to other developed nations is because of the moral degradation of our society. People in America are more immoral and more prone to violence, and this is why we have more gun-related violence, not the prevalence of guns. And I would disagree with the basic premise of that. I don't think anybody is saying we have more amoral or immoral people in America. So to address the problem, we need more education and gun regulations, they will say. The cited cause of this moral degradation shifts depending on who you ask. For some, it's faulty parenting. For others, it's the fact that God has been taken out of society and schools. For still others, it's the violent and amoral entertainment we consume. Correspondingly, the preferred solution also varies. Better parenting, outlawing or rating entertainment, putting God back in society and schools, but definitely not gun regulations. They won't solve anything. Gun regulations solve very little of the problem that is endemic to a society that has people in it that are either psychotic or immoral. Is psychosis immoral? I don't think so, because they don't really gauge what they're doing by a moral system. So Steve Clark says, I could lay any kind of a firearm on a table forever, and it won't kill anybody until a person picks it up and uses it to kill someone. Bingo. Reason is not a common thing, says Joyce. And I agree with you, Joyce. Reason has gone out the window. Ryan Gale says, guns are blamed for mass shootings because people have no better solution to solve the problem. So they blame the guns and they said, let's make rules against the guns. But the big question is, if these people, do they really understand that not allowing guns doesn't really stop the violence? Would 22 people who shot people this last month, would those have not killed any people if there were stricter gun laws? Or no guns at all? You know what? The world would be a much more peaceful place if we just stopped having wars. That's the argument. You could go further down the chain, says Ryan, and blame video games for influencing people to use guns to kill. Maybe. Might be. My son plays this Western game over here, and he's killing people all the time. But it's in video land. I also don't think my son would ever pick up a gun to kill somebody the way you see it in the movies or on TV. Yes, Joyce, these people do have an agenda. They want to keep in power. Exactly right. So you have to ask, what's the underlying reason for wanting gun laws and more strict gun control, and even gun bans being thrown about, or abolishing the Second Amendment in the extreme cases? What's the purpose for that? Are there good people that believe some of these things? Sure. There are good-hearted people that believe some of these things. But wrong-headedly, those things do not stop gun violence. I love you too, Audrey. You have to get back to work. Have fun going back and forth. Be nice to each other in the chat. Everyone is free to speak their mind. Just don't be dicks to each other. I agree, Audrey. That is a very good point to make. Nobody has to be a dick to anybody else. If you want to state a point, state your point. So, all points are welcome. Let's see, what did Doug say? Ryan Gale, I've played those video games and watched home horror movies, and I have never used a gun to kill anybody. You know what? Same here. I don't play a lot of games, but you know what? I've even had swords in my hand where I have played out sword play on the stage. Ryan has been with me where we have played out reenacting battles with our muskets. But you know what? Neither Ryan and I are going to go out and try to kill people with our swords or our muskets. And we've gone a step beyond video games. We've actually reenacted it without live ammunition. So, Doug, that was a point I made earlier. So, can we ban meth or coke or heroin? You know what? There are bans on them already. So we don't have now that we have bans on crystal meth, there's no more meth problem in the United States, right? Because we have a ban on it. Not allowed. Can't buy it. Can't manufacture it. Can't use it. There's laws against all of that. So now that we have those laws in place, there's no meth problem in our country, right? Ryan Gale says, I think psychologically or physiologically, that using guns to kill is more impersonal, and therefore easier than using knives or swords or bayonets. Yeah, that's very true. If you can shoot somebody at 20 feet away rather than getting up 6 inches from them and shoving a knife into their kidney, yeah, that's going to be definitely a lot easier to do. Love you too, Audrey. Oh, maybe that was a repeat message. There you go. Let's see. Mind control is how this creepy few stay in power, and it's very easy. You can see it taking place now. You can see the media right now supporting it. Yeah, exactly, Doug. How do we have a drug problem then? It's already banned. How do we have a drug problem? Make war against the law. Make bank monopoly against the law. Yeah, there you go. Ryan, oh, you did mean psychologically. I thought I read that at first that way. So the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It's a natural manure. You're absolutely right, Doug. So, guys, we aren't going to solve the problem tonight, but I think and I hope that we gave each other interesting things to talk about, to think about. You can have an agenda and want to see that agenda furthered, but that agenda does absolutely no good if it doesn't make any sense and if it doesn't really work to solve the problem. Do you think of your kids' and grandkids' futures, Amanda B says, or just selves and ego? Well, I think of my kids and my grandkids, and I hope to God they still have the right to own and bear arms in this country. That's why I have a show like this. It's why I talk about these things, to preserve the rights that we all naturally have. And all our Constitution does in the United States, and thank God it's in there, because it's a bitch trying to change the Constitution. And the founders made it deliberately very difficult to change the Constitution for a reason. So let's see, I'm missing some, I see the little chat room up there. Scotty, will never be resolved as long as there's people wanting to take our rights away. Very true. You know, what's one of the best ways to overthrow a country? Make sure the citizenry doesn't have any weapons to defend themselves. Because sometimes talk in a court of law, talk in legislative halls, we have seen all throughout history that doesn't always resolve the problems. If you have a tyranny that is placed over a country, should that country be allowed to rebel against the tyranny? What are they going to do that with? Penknives? So, what did Joyce just say? Doug said, what putrid fools made that claim? Yeah, exactly. It's a fiery topic, Lewis. It certainly is. So, folks, that's it. Leslie says, I have a real problem with people who don't live in our country criticizing our constitutional rights. America has never been invaded because they know private citizens are armed. That is very true. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It's a natural manure, says Doug. Huh. Well, it was actually Thomas Jefferson who first said that. He didn't call it natural manure. He just said the tree of liberty from time to time has to be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. So there we go. Make America great again. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Do you all remember who said that? Ben Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And they will get neither. Exactly. All right, folks, we're going to have to wrap it up for tonight. I hate to say it because, you know, I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying all the things that we're talking about. And you're going to see my pen get in the way here every now and then. And I apologize for that. It's just the way it is. So, folks, thanks for being here. It's a topic. It's not an unusual topic. I think we talk about these topics a lot. I don't see this as politics. I see this as part of our nation. This is part of who we are. This is part of things we need to know. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing. Think about these things. Don't emote about them. Think about them. Apply common sense. So, folks, as usual, you know what? Live long and prosper, and I'll see you another night.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.